Hello everyone, and welcome back to my Know by Year. Today we're going to do the 9-month update. So I think this video is coming out just after September has ended, so it's officially fall, and I have had the first of my auditions of the season. I was supposed to have the first two, but I actually ended up canceling the second one after my experience at the first one. And so that kind of brings me to my first point about the 9-month update of my Know by Year, and that is the realization or the rediscovery that big emotions make not buying things seem a little bit trivial. Or let me put it another way. After my first audition rejection and the kind of negative experience that I had of that event, for many reasons, maybe I'll get into that in a moment, but after those big feelings kind of set in, the rejection, the negativity, the tiredness, the questioning what I'm doing, all of these emotions, after those feelings really started to set in, the fact that I'm on a no buy challenge this year started to feel kind of trivial and meaningless. And it was kind of like, what is the point of this arbitrary challenge? Obviously, I'm trying to change my relationship with consumerism, but it doesn't really make a difference if I choose to buy something or not at this time. Now, I didn't actually want to buy something. Here's the interesting thing, I suppose. I didn't have the urge to actually add something new to my life, to my home, to my closet, to my makeup collection, to anything that I formerly used to love to consume. But I did have the urge to shop. So the urge to buy or to add something is now noticeably separate from the urge to go browse and shop and try things on and peruse what's new and out there in my life. So perhaps that's a development of this Know by Year, that shopping doesn't have to lead to a purchase, doesn't have to lead to buying. And I know that's, a fairly obvious point, right? Where you can go shopping, the behaviors of shopping rather, don't have to lead to a purchase. And many of you probably already feel this and know this, and this might be one of your tactics to not buy stuff. I've heard it's often used where you, fill a cart full of stuff and then leave. You don't buy anything. Or you go browse and then you don't buy, or you go try things on and don't buy. So I guess let me go ahead and get into the whole story of my audition, since this is probably the biggest development of my 9-month update. And then we'll get into things like what I actually bought over the past 3 months since my last update, and etc. This first audition was in Denver. Now that it's passed, I think I'm free to talk about it without people on the panel possibly coming across my information and then knowing that I'm there. It's supposed to be completely anonymous, so auditions are taken behind a screen. I have explained this process before on my channel in this video about failure and how it affected my buying habits. And this is kind of a rehash of that, but in real time, because I've just experienced that failure. So if you haven't seen that video and you want to know more about this, feel free to go and watch that one. But getting back to the fresh rejection, I was in Denver. I got there, I was traveling alone. Sometimes my family or my husband do come with me for these trips, but this time I was alone, and I had planned to go for the 2-day full audition process. Some auditions are just 1 day, with the first round being on the first day and then other rounds on another later date. And other auditions will conclude entirely in 2 or 3 days. I still don't know the winner of this audition. Maybe I do by the time I'm editing and posting this, but it really doesn't matter. So I'm in Denver, I'm walking around the city, getting to my hotel. My flight was delayed for a couple of hours leaving my airport, so that was a great start to my audition experience. Not quite knowing when I was going to get to the city where I'm auditioning. I just had to get there on the same day, otherwise I would risk missing my audition the following day. And when you miss an audition, you do lose a deposit. So it's either $50, $75, $100, somewhere in that range. And if you don't show up, they'll take that from you, in some cases, no matter what the reason. And I did cancel my audition that was supposed to be the week after, and I did lose my $100 deposit. So that stinks, to be honest. And I've actually never canceled an audition before, and that was another wave of an emotional roller coaster that I had to ride, deciding to cancel that, ultimately for the sake of my health and stress levels and just not wasting anybody's time and ultimately saving more money from the flights and the hotels. But anyway, so I'm in Denver, delayed, got some food, got to the hotel, had, as well of a night's sleep as I could possibly get before a nerve-wracking event the next day. As many of you will understand, having had events that you've had some anxiety about the following day, your sleep is not the greatest. So anyway, I wake up, I start walking to the audition the next morning, get breakfast and all that. My heart rate is climbing up to almost 200, and I think it's the altitude in combination with my current hyperthyroid health issue. So I'm not feeling that great on the way there. And although I do take a beta blocker for performance anxiety, I'm just not sure how it's going to go. After I got there, I did start feeling a lot better, calmed down, was warming up in a group warm-up room with other candidates for the job. And I was feeling good, actually. I was feeling positive about my chances. You know, everybody's kind and nice at these things. We're musicians. We have a community within ourselves, even if we're competing against each other on that particular day. So anyway, I'm feeling good, get into the private warm-up room, and then I start profusely sweating. And this is not something that typically happens to me at auditions. I think this is really a symptom of the hyperthyroid issue. And cut a long story short, I go play, it doesn't go that well. Or certain things go well, certain things just aren't exactly how they usually are in my practice, you know? So I'm not surprised when they decide to not accept any of us from my hour into the next round. I mean, I wasn't surprised, but it was still extremely upsetting. So I leave the audition, you know, get out of there, want to get home or get to the hotel. I'm committed to staying in Denver for the next day, which also kind of stinks because I can't get back to my kids, my family. You know, changing the flight was going to cost a lot more than it was possibly worth. And so I'm just not feeling that great. I'm walking back to the hotel and I have this urge to shop or to seek something to soothe my battered soul, if you will. It's downtown, so there's multiple stores on the way. There's a lot of construction too, so it's very messy at the moment, very noisy. There's a large population of homeless people. And anyway, there's just a lot of kind of heightened emotions, heightened stimulation. It's a new environment, and I'm passing these, you know, familiar stores, I guess, which is one of the marketing tactics, I believe, that these brands employ, right? They're familiar, they're the same everywhere. And I see a Sephora, which I didn't go into, and I passed an H&M, which I did go into. I'm actually not an H&M shopper. The last time I actually bought anything from an H&M was probably 7 years ago. And I'm referring to that blue and white striped shirt, the sleeveless shirt that you might have seen in my wardrobe videos. And I still have it. And it's obviously, you know, I'm not going to declutter it just because it's H&M, a brand that I don't really like. And I went into the store knowing I don't really like their clothes, I don't like their quality, I don't like their practices, their environmental practices, or even their just consumerist atmosphere. It's just not really my thing anymore. And you know, I'm just browsing, looking for some distraction, looking for some little pick-me-up, and kind of have my eye out. You might have already seen my wardrobe predictions video where I predicted that my form-fitting long-sleeve tops were going to be some of the less worn pieces in my closet. And I did talk about how if one of them were in cobalt blue, I might feel more compelled to reach for them because then it would have that kind of punch of color that I'm lacking from them currently. And I found the top kind of in that vein. It was like a darker cobalt blue, so not exactly the color I was looking for. And they didn't have my size, so it was going to be either too large or too small. And I just went and tried it on anyway in the larger size. Didn't end up buying it. It was also the wrong material. It was not. So anyway, you know, I kind of had my feelers out for that kind of thing. And while I didn't expect them to have anything that I would be buying, and I can't tell you that that's why I chose that store in particular, it was just what was on the way. I wasn't necessarily strategically thinking, oh, there's nothing I'm going to want in here, so this isn't going to be a real test. And I also can't promise you that if I hadn't found the perfect cobalt blue long sleeve top, that I wouldn't have bought it that day. Just because I was feeling so down, and I was also feeling like my perspective was not in line with a no-buy challenge. And I guess that's the point that I would like to emphasize to you now, is that if your perspective in life is not conducive to a no-buy fitting in a reasonable way, maybe it's not the time to do a no-buy challenge, or maybe it is time to re-examine whatever challenge you're currently on, or tweak things so that you still accomplish the goals that you're looking to accomplish, but you don't have this arbitrary set of rules hanging over your head. And again, I really admire people that go their whole no-buy year and stick it to the letter and go through on the power of will and their why and all these things that you see people advocating for in favor of the no-buy challenge. However, I just don't know if real life is conducive to that, and certainly not after the challenge, right? I have seen examples of people who've done no-buys that now have gone on to re-consume, re-enter the world of over-consumerism, whether it's being an influencer or just acquiring more and more things with less discernment, or emphasizing the discernment but still acquiring more than is strictly necessary for even a full wardrobe. And I'm not here to talk about what you should have in your wardrobe today. That might be another discussion. But it's just that life after no-buy is going to be full of these ups and downs. And we have to have a way of managing what course we want to be staying on. And I know that I don't want to become an overconsumer again. I don't want to dip back into those waters. I don't want to be acquiring things only to declutter other things. I don't want to go back to shopping as a hobby, especially not shopping that ends with a purchase most of the time. I don't want to become an influencer of products. There's all these things I know I don't want to do. And there are things that I know I do want to do as well. People say talk in the positive goals because it's easier to do something than to not do something. So I do want to save money. I do want to have better style in my closet, in my wardrobe, less options. I have been feeling that already in my back to work fall outfits, is that sometimes because I have so many options, it does make it harder to choose, because I could wear this, maybe I should wear this if I feel like I haven't worn my denim skirt. Like, there are all sorts of emotions that bubble up just because I have that excess of choice. And now I'm feeling it in that way. And I can see the possible benefits of having a more downsized wardrobe. At the same time, though, I have been kind of categorizing my clothes, and I realize that perhaps I am at a number that would be okay. And I'm not feeling pressured to decrease just for numbers' sake. Again, these are more updates for dedicated wardrobe videos, but my point that I was starting to try to make there was that we have to have some kind of perspective for no buying and reasonable consumerism to keep us where we want to be, keep our behavior lining up with our values, even when times get tougher or things happen where our perspective momentarily changes. And now I'm back talking to you on camera again. It's actually been a couple of weeks since I'm filmed because I had to preload a couple of weeks of content because of my auditions. And it feels good to be back. It feels a little bit weird. Maybe I've changed now, I don't know. Maybe you sense a change in my demeanor. But after that day, or a couple of days in Denver, by myself, kind of reflecting, kind of interacting with no-buy from a different place of feeling like, well, it's kind of a silly challenge, right? It's not the be-all and end-all. My life is not a no-buy challenge. I have more of a life. I feel like I have more of a life now that I've gone back to work, now that that's started again, and I have other things to work towards in a very real sense. And I am grateful for this outlet, but the perspective now is perhaps more realistic, where my life is not no-buy, and my life will not be no-buy. Even if this were my primary source of income, well, that's an interesting point, because if this were my primary source of income, I could see how my life could become no-buy. And I now understand that that's not where I want to be. I don't want my whole life to be no-buy. I don't want to advocate for people's lives to be no-buy. And it's possible that I've been going a little too far in that direction in my latest weeks of content before this one, because that's kind of where I was in the summer of content creation, and this being one of my main projects. And it might still remain one of my main projects, but it's not the main project anymore. And I am going to try to film a finance update where I'll share all the information that I now have on the other side of video creation, just so you have maybe more of a picture of the influencer financial breakdown from somebody who's not an influencer, if that makes sense. So look out for that maybe this week. So anyway, that's the story of my recent emotional roller coaster and how it changed my relationship to no-buy. And although I didn't actually buy anything after this experience, I do have a different perspective. And while I still want to stick to my no-buy, more or less, for the end of the year, especially as sales season is rolling around the corner, and while I'm still going to be focusing my content on how you can avoid falling into the traps of buying things, how you can avoid sales season if you don't want to be sucked in or feel pressured to buy things because the ads are hounding you and trying to get you to step into those sales, I don't know where I'm going to end up after this year. What I do know is that I already feel this urge to pivot my content into something that's going to be more helpful. I've been very self-centered up until this point. This is my journey of my no-buy after all, and I will continue to be relatively self-centered. I will create content, from the self, from my reflections until the end of this year for sure. I might try to branch out a little bit just in the nature of the type of content that I'm going to do. I'm starting my series of digital detoxing. I think the start of that might have been last week or even 2 weeks ago. And that's kind of another facet of conscious consuming that I'm working on. I got a very interesting email actually from a university, I believe, in Germany about the free conscious consuming guide. And I have to explore that a little bit more, but I would love to share it with you as well. I probably will make a dedicated video about it because they actually reached out to me by email and they asked me to make them an offer, but I don't think I'm going to be making an offer. I think I'm just going to be sharing the resource because like I said, I'm not an influencer. This isn't my main source of income, and it's not really my goal to make it the main source. I appreciate all the help that it can give me in my life, and it is a big help. Again, you'll see in the financial update if I'm able to put things delicately. I've already tried to film that video twice and deleted it both times because it just read as a little bit icky to me, but I think I found the way. But anyway, more on that to follow. The other kind of pieces of content that are coming are book focused. So some of them are recommendations from my comments. So you might see a cheeky title about I was influenced by you in the future to talk about the first of these books that I've seen recommended to me. And in doing these reviews or these kind of taking the helpful parts from these books for a no-buy or conscious consuming, I hope to provide a little more value, back to my community and to the world of social media at large. Again, providing forces to fight the rampant consumerism messaging that we see. I also think that I might want to do a wardrobe video every week as a kind of goal. It may not happen every single week, but that's kind of the loose framework that I'm trying to start instigating. For whatever reason, I noticed that my clothing-focused videos do seem to get more views, which I don't really care about the views for numbers' sake, but it just shows that there's more interest in that side of consumerism, trying not to consume. And I, goodness knows, have plenty of thoughts on getting dressed and enjoying your wardrobe and not buying excessive things and feeling this sense that my wardrobe is too full. And yet I can also look at the numbers and think this isn't that bad, or it's not, it's a complicated spectrum here, right? So there'll be more content examining that kind of thing as well, for sure, as well as showing my outfits and having fun with my style, because that is part of this journey, is trying to enjoy my style more, trying to have more fun expressing my style, not feeling some of the reservations that I sometimes feel, and then also kind of deciding what to keep and what I can let go of in that expression of myself, and unpacking all the emotions that go with keeping things and letting things go. The guilt or the regret or the, trying not to regret things, or the feelings that we should be wearing something, or size changes, life changes. It's really an endless pit of possibility. Another thing that came up during my experience of the past 3 months is that resounding realization. It's not a new one, but it's kind of something we all know, but even the books that I was reading kind of touch on this as well. It's just that if we don't take care of ourselves, if we're not in a position to take care of our own health, we will find any type of challenge, any no-buy, any new thing, exercise, any new thing we want to start in our lives will be harder. If we're not getting enough sleep, if we're not eating well, if we're not exercising, and that's a big one. I've been talking about this pretty much all year, that I really need to start exercising. But after reading some of the books that I've gotten through, it's just confirmed again that there's never going to be a bad time in your life to bring exercise in if you're not already doing it. Like, it really is a must for optimal health. And what am I doing? Why am I not doing this? Like, it's as important as getting good sleep and eating well as far as keeping healthy and warding off bodily ailments. And I've been feeling a lot of bodily ailments, but I haven't been treating myself with exercise, right? It's the thing I could do before going to a doctor to prevent, or maintain wellness. And I just haven't been doing it. So I'm grateful for the expanded perspective on taking care of myself that some of this media, some of these books have given me as well. I've also talked about it on this channel, how social media promotes different forms of self-care that involve buying things, how anxiety can make us feel pressure to buy. So these are subjects that I've been stepping in and out of myself as well. But there's just something about maybe the time of my life where I'm finally getting some sense of agency, going back to work, getting a better grasp on my perspective, getting more control of my time online after a few weeks of digital detoxing and chronicling that here, that things are just starting to maybe click into place in a more realistic, lifelong way. I don't know. You can see if you stick around and follow the developments of life after no-buy. Anyway, so what did I buy in the past 3 months? You will have already seen the bulk of those purchases in the video where I shop for Halloween. So I'll tag that up here. I got essentially 2 Halloween costumes. It was supposed to just be one, but I got most of it secondhand on resale apps, and one of the apps had a full suit in it plus one piece of the next suit. So I won't spoil it, but it basically involved a lot of clothing pieces, some accessories, and that was most of my shopping that I did this past 3 months. I also caved and broke another one of my no-buy rules. Surprised? No. But I ended up buying quite a few books. And I also donated quite a few books, or I took them to a half-price books or used thrift books. They have buyback programs, right? So you take your books and they'll buy them off you and give you a voucher to spend at the bookstore. So some of these were kind of trade-ins, but I did definitely buy more than I had trade-in credit for. So I shopped, and nobody's going to be surprised, probably. Some of this was to acquire the books that were popping up in my comments over and over again. I did use a library when I could, but in some cases they either didn't have it, they only had an audiobook. Even in those cases, sometimes I just used the audiobook and did the best that I could to take notes and retain information. But some of these books I just really wanted to have a physical copy of. And it's really hard because I do believe that books, art, I consider books as a possible work of art, right? Like, it's not exclusive to me, and it's very difficult for me to think that buying art or supporting an artist or an author is a bad thing. I kind of touched on productivity books being a problem, or productivity media in general, because it's often in the realms of snake oil or grifting, where they're selling you a way to be productive and then making money on you buying the book about how to be productive, which then funds their life. And then it's kind of like this cycle of, oh, you buy the book and that's how they can make their living, but they're selling that idea. And it's a cycle. And if we all did that, then the economy would have no valuable stuff in it. Anyway, so not productivity books, but these are kind of informational books and or works of fiction that I think will be enriching for my life. And again, I have kind of a large collection that I have brought in. So consider this a relatively major failure of my no-buy year, but again, I can't be totally remorseful about it. You could point the finger at me and say that I'm becoming an influencer because some of these books were purchased with the goal of doing a review of them on here in mind. But it's not just for that, right? If I wasn't going to benefit in my own life from consuming this content, I wouldn't be consuming this content. I'm not solely doing it to make a piece of content out of. And I'm certainly not guaranteed to make the money back for a book right now. I think I mentioned that in my Wear It Well. I still have that book. I need to take that one to Half Price Books too. But I mentioned that in the video about this book, where I'm not yet at the size of channel or view count where I will make the money that a book costs back by doing a video about it. Now, I have a better chance of making the money back if the book costs less. So if I do a review on a thrifted book that costs $5 or less, then I might actually make that amount of money by making a video about it. But of course, that doesn't factor in the time it takes to film and edit, that labor time. Anyway, we'll see if I manage to make that financial video. Stay tuned. Some of the books that I do have, just to give you an idea of what's coming, possibly even next year, because I just might not have the time to read and review these before then, are the one I have in my lap here was the one I originally planned to trade my books for. This is Walden, and I have read this before, but I just wanted to have a physical copy of it. I got Walden and Other Writings this time, so there's actually a few books in here. Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau. It was so long ago that I read Walden that I don't really remember it at all. Something I've noticed about reading books these days is that it does tend to come in and leave, and I think some of the residue of what I've learned from the book will stay with me, right? That's the nature of new information. I'll assimilate these ideas and perhaps believe that some of them are my own in the future after forgetting where I got them. But I do want to have some of the books that resonate with me a lot or teach me something new or show me a new perspective in my collection so that I can reread them again in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, or just, own them so I can lend them out to friends. The books that say something about me and the way I view life are the ones that I want to have. And I have talked about doing a book declutter at some point. It's kind of the last declutter left because my books are kind of all over the house and I have to get them all together, and I'm just worried that that video is going to be like an hour long, because if I give a little tidbit about every book in my collection, then we might be here for a long time. And I have had a couple of comments saying that they do want to see that. If you want to see that, let me know as well. I probably will do a book declutter. and it might be really long and it might take a while to edit, so it might not be anytime soon. However, I have a collection of books that have meant something to me in my life, and I'm not opposed to accumulating more of those types of books up to a certain point. And yes, I do like the library. I do prefer to borrow a book before I buy it so that I know it's going to be one of those books before I buy it. Thank you to those of you who have commented about using the library. I have a Kindle as well. I use the Libby app, and then I realistically can't make it to the library in person often enough to make that a regular habit, but borrowing online through the Kindle and audiobooks has served me well over the past few months. Some of the books that I've recently acquired, we've got Walden, we've got In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, because this was one of the ones that had an 8-month wait, something like that, at my local library. And I just am not, first of all, I'm not going to finish it fast enough to make sure, and I know the Kindle hack where you download the book, put it on airplane mode, and then return the book so you have the book. And I try to manage that as well. I don't know how responsible that is to do, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not really here to be roasted for that, but I have a hard time managing that as well, right? Because when a book that you've been waiting 8 months for becomes available and you have 5 other books downloaded on your Kindle that you have to get through, it's kind of like, oh no, do I defer this book or do I return all those books, lose access to them to get this one? So I bought this one, thrifted again, you know, it's used. I think I got this one online at Thrift Books, and Thrift Books does do this reading rewards program where if you get a certain amount of points, you get a free book. So it does tend to trap me as well, but I do try to be careful and only buy books that I've been actively interested in. Those ones that have a 6 to 8 month wait on my local library list because they're so sought after. And often, honestly, the fact that books like this and some of these other ones have such a long waiting list is a really positive sign to me, because it means other people are interested in this kind of content, in learning about these kinds of things. And again, like some of the books that were recommended to me, The Hacking of the American Mind, I just finished on audiobook. Some of the Conscious Consuming in the Wardrobe ones, I've already had some of these, and some of those also have a long wait. Sometimes it's just because there's one copy available, but still, I'm heartened to see, and my spirits are bolstered to see that people are interested in learning about these things. There's a few others over there. Let me just grab those. So these were kind of part of the last Half Price Books haul. 9-month note buy update, and here you have a book haul. There's life. That's life. We have the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, in the pursuit of kind of being more mindful and meditative. We have Thus Spake Zarathustra. This has been on my list for a long time. It's Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche. I've done a couple of videos on Immanuel Kant's Principles of Ethics, and I would love to delve a little bit more into philosophy. It's interesting, actually. I've done a video already on the algorithm and how my own journey on YouTube has taken me through these various different niches of content, right? So financial, conscious consuming. First it was the buying stuff and the purely influencers, the Amazon hauls, the Shein hauls, whatever. And then it became more conscious consuming and fashion. It eventually ended up being kind of in the philosophy realms, and then also in the realms of more activism type topics. I wonder if the algorithm is trying to show me these niches of content that I might try to find myself creating in the future as well. What would the options be if that was the case? It'd be like philosophy, conscious fashion, takedown videos of hypocritical influencers, or how media is wasting everyone's time these days and how TikTok is terrible. So those are kind of like the 4 niches I guess I could go. Anyway, I have No Logo. This one's come up in my comments several times, and I'm excited to read that. Similarly, Brand Washed and Biology. I don't know where biology is right now, so I might be coming at you with more about brands and how they manipulate us. I have Affluenza as well. That one was just in my comments. I think multiple different people have actually mentioned this one to me, and I started reading it and I was honestly shocked because it rang so true. And I stopped reading it actually because I thought this could be a serious video. Like this could be an expose, I guess. Like, am I using that word correctly? Basically, it could inspire a really meaningful piece of content. And I wanted to kind of read it when I had the space to think about that. I would love to start being more creative with my videos as well. I know that part of the reason that I'm still on here is that my videos are easy to do. I'm just sitting in my cozy corner and talking. But I have this urge of learning and growing and being more creative and impactful. And I guess the other thing is I'm losing some of the fear of judgment and what people might think. And I believe everything I said about thinking about your followers, you know, the people that loyally consume the content you create. But at the same time, I have to have faith that those of you who care about conscious consumerism as a whole will also resonate with my ideas, as long as that is the focus of my content. So again, this is all getting kind of meta and analytical, and this is just supposed to be a no-buy update for 9 months, and perhaps I'm getting off into the weeds, and no doubt I've already lost those viewers who clicked on this just to hear a 9-month no-buy update, so maybe I shouldn't worry about that anyway. But I do want to film my financial update today, so I should probably sign off. It's like I've forgotten how to do this a little bit from having even just a 2-week break from filming. And I actually have several other things to do today. I have to practice and live stream some of that as well. Anyway, the 9-month no-buy update. Big emotions, big life events kind of make a no-buy challenge seem ridiculous, seem trivial, and so we should proceed with that in mind. And perhaps make our true goal not to stick to a no-buy, but to really make a sustainable life change. And if not buying stuff for a set period of time is a step on that path, then great. I do think it's a really helpful tool. I do think it works like that. I think it can help you reset your course. And I'm still here to help you if you're on a no-buy and you want to give your progress updates in this 9-month update. I would love to hear it from you. I'd love to read your comments. I still read them all, even if I can't reply as much now. I'll get to it, I promise. But the perspective is just changing. And I guess the other thing I've learned is that I probably benefit from working outside the home as far as my emotional health and as far as my relationship to other aspects of health, as well as seeing how exercise is truly necessary and that I need to prioritize that for basically myself and my family. So more on that to come, no doubt. Happy fall, everyone. If I haven't said it already, it's already decidedly fall time. Hopefully the season is going well so far for all of you. Bye for now, and I will see you in the next one.